Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
There's a lot of information regarding the war in Ukraine, what led to it, what is the real complicated relationship between Russia and Ukraine, and what's going on. And aren't we glad in these troubling times that we have somebody who, with clarity, simplicity, and accuracy, can tell us exactly what we need to know.
Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
Wow, what a brain trust she is. I'm going to borrow a line from Bill Maher. New rule. If you can't identify Ukraine on a map, you don't get to talk about it. This is exactly why the world and our country is in the shape it's in. Her and that dementia-ridden so-called president, Joe Biden, this is our leadership. These are the people we're supposed to be taking direction and directives from. You've got, on the one hand, Joe Biden, who sees himself as, I think, FDR. He really thought he came out there in that State of the Union, which really we should have renamed it the State of the Ukraine Union, because he really didn't have much to say about the U.S., and what he did say ticked off a lot of his own radical base when he talked about, we need to refund the police. Like, wait, what? And then, he got off in some, really abstract stuff like, we're going to cure cancer like we walked on the moon. Yeah, okay. Of course, he didn't want to talk about what was really going on, the runaway inflation, gas prices, etc. Because after all, that's because we're sticking sanctions to Russia, and if we love democracy, we're willing to sacrifice groceries and paying $12 a gallon at the gas pump. That's our patriotic duty for democracy. So while we so-called defend the democracy of Ukraine, we get our own democracy stripped. When we talk about the reason we have to defend Ukraine is their borders were invaded. What about our borders? You don't seem to worry about our borders being invaded on a daily basis, but we have Kamala Harris giving us this beyond. I mean, I think a third grader could give a more literate response as to what is going on than, you've got two countries, one's bigger than the other one, and the bigger one decided to pick on the little one. What? I really don't know if this is more of her smugness talking down to the audience thinking, well, the only ones that listen to this kind of a program are people who are, uneducated. So, she makes herself feel good and feel smart by talking down, or if she really is this completely stupid herself, because it's obvious merit, brains, and ability did not advance her career through the years. Other things advanced her career through the years, including getting to be the vice president. She didn't get there by merit. She got there, by her gender and her skin color, and it was the Democrats' idea that she was the backup plan. They knew they had a mentally cognitive deficient individual candidate, then president-elect, now president, and the idea was when the time was right, he would step out of the way and Kamala would assume the reins. And then it became abundantly clear very, very early into the Biden administration, she is completely not up to the task. Nobody likes her. Her staff hates her. They can't keep staff around her. And the more she talks, the dumber she sounds. And in reality, if Hillary Clinton is seeing any kind of a rebound in her own popularity, she can thank Kamala thinks she's a hottie Harris, because the only other woman in politics that is hated more than Hillary Rotham Clinton is Kamala Harris. That cackle laugh and that constant condescending tone in which she talks to people, like she is, the assistant principal of your school. And young man, we're just not going to have this kind of behavior out of you. That is exactly how she addresses the American people. And this overly simplistic, it's not simply the fact that Russia's bigger. Now, I've been through this ad nauseum. Again, I am not a Putin apologist. I want to be clear on that. But in 2014, the Obama administration, and who was vice president then? Oh, yeah, one, Joe Biden. The Obama administration staged a coup and overthrew the duly elected government of Ukraine, claiming them to be corrupt, because this new government is such an improvement, claiming them to be corrupt, and they installed a government that would be more open to Western ideas. So, as a result of that, 2 states within Ukraine said, we don't want to be a part of this anymore. We all speak Russian. We have the Russian culture. We feel more comfortable with Russia. We would like to be part of the Russian Federation again. And Ukraine said, no, nay, that's not going to happen. And to show our appreciation of why we want you to hang in there and stick with us, we're going to bomb you, we're going to blockade you, we are going to economically embargo you, and they have been doing that for 8 years. And again, to say, well, they're part of Ukraine and Russia has no business to interfere in that. Now, wait a minute, time out. They were part of Ukraine when the government that they helped forge and elect was in power. When Barack Obama, i.e. the United States, once again stepped into a sovereign nation and decided we knew what was best for the leadership, and we toppled a sovereign government, and we had a regime change, because again, as we all get indignant around the world that how dare Putin invade a sovereign country. What do you call it when the United States steps into a sovereign nation, and whether it's by use of military, whatever, we topple a leadership? Again, that doesn't mean that there aren't leaderships that we look at and say, man, that is what they're doing. That's awful. It's awful. But it doesn't give us the right to come in on our holier-than-thou horse and decide we're going to set what's wrong right. And sometimes it seems to be this noble cause. A lot of times you wonder, okay, another nation that we can now fleece and financially rape with our crap and take from them what we can get. On that, Joe Biden, and again, we've gone over this ad nauseum, his son went to work for Burisma, receiving ungodly amounts of money for doing absolutely nothing because he wasn't there because of his vast experience or the fact that he was a brain trust. He was there because his last name was Biden, his dad was the vice president, and Ukraine was buying access into the Obama administration. And I am very certain that President Zelensky, Karpinski, Chorchinsky, whatever ski, has been counting on the fact that they made a lot of payments to the Biden family through the years that, and to a certain degree, they kind of own him. And I'm certain that Zelensky thought as soon as the Russian tanks crossed the border that immediately America would step in. And he's finding out what a lot of other people have found out, that Biden really is a criminal. And criminals will lie to you. They will take advantage of you. They will steal you blind. And what? You like a used car salesman, you actually expect me to honor that warranty that I printed for you on recycled construction paper that's now toilet paper? What, are you kidding? I mean, Biden has now decided to just let them twist in the wind. Oh, I know. He's hit them with crippling sanctions. Yeah. Oh, and if you're following the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media, we're seizing yachts. What are we, pirates now? It's just, can somebody please explain to me how taking the luxury love boat of some big fat Russian billionaire, how exactly does that hurt the Russian war machine? Is it all of a sudden, a bunch of soldiers named Joris and Boris are like, we cannot fight. We have no more yachts. What the? This is just insane. And the media talks about this breathlessly like, look, FDR, I mean Biden, look at what he's doing. He's so strong. He's so persuasive. Bullhawk. Zelensky, Karpinski, Yarvinsky, whatever ski, was counting on Biden and the Americans being there by now with our war machine to set Russia straight. And it ain't happening. In fact, to show you how non-crippling these so-called sanctions are not, we, along with many other nations, continue to buy oil from Russia. Now, on the one hand, I have been saying this right along, and I'm going to keep on saying it. You do know that Ukraine is not a good nation. And again, that is nothing against the people of Ukraine. I do feel bad that I think the last report is something like there's 1 million refugees now flooding out of Ukraine. And, both the Ukraine and Russians are lying about the death tolls on each side regarding, military. That's part of that is the fog of war. Part of that is just straight up propaganda. And I do feel bad that, civilian populations are being bombed and obliterated. What I won't do is the same hyperbole that you're getting at places like PMSNBC and CNN and some of these so-called Democratic talking heads, which are actually saying that they even hold responsible the citizens of Russia for what Putin is doing. Wow, really? Really? What exactly do you expect those citizens to do? They could march. Right, because we know how well that would go over, and we know that they tried that, and we see what happened there. And in so-called peaceful countries, when truckers have marched and did nothing that was even remotely violent, they had their bank accounts seized, their driver's licenses stripped, their insurance revoked, and then when they got out of their trucks and got on their knees with their hands behind their head, the police came, knocked them to the ground, kneed them, and beat them. And that's what we do in a democracy-loving nation to peaceful protesters. Imagine what would happen to them in Russia if they did a mass protest. And they tried, and look what happened. So I feel bad for the Ukraine people. My heart goes out to them. And obviously, as a pastor, I am praying that somehow, some way, the gospel of Christ is able to be spread in Ukraine right now. But the government itself is corrupt. Zelensky, a stand-up comic, is a comedic leader. All he's doing is just, pimping out his people for money. All of these false, fake stories, the beauty queen of Ukraine, took off her crown and picked up a weapon and joined the fight, and she had to come out and say, no, that was a publicity photo of me holding an airsoft gun months and months ago. We were told that Yelinsky, Karpinski, Varzinski, whatever ski, the leader of Ukraine, look at him in his battle fatigues, and he's out there with his army, and he's helping to stand against the Russians. Bullhawk. Turns out those were publicity photos from over a year ago when he made a visit on the Ukraine army as they were bombing the two states that wanted to leave Ukraine and go back to Russia. Look at the price they're paying for not just letting the two states leave and go back to Russia. Just saying. So there's a lot here. And again, I'm not defending Putin. As I've said, both of these countries are corrupt and evil. So this is not about picking the lesser of two evils. This is about picking the evil of two lessers. That's what we're dealing with here. And to think that we're going to beat them by, continuing to buy their oil, and we've confiscated their yachts. Now, one of those that the media is just salivating over is apparently a Russian billionaire had sent his yacht to Germany for some type of repairs. So it was literally in dock, and the German government just came in and seized it. Well, let me ask you a question. I don't care which side of the argument you're on. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel, seriously, what do you think of someone's private property being seized like that? again, I don't know. I don't know this individual. I don't know his history. Is he actually like officially part of the Russian government? Seriously, I mean, is he a cabinet officer? Does he have an official post? Or is he just some really rich guy from Russia who happened to own a yacht and now it's been impounded simply because he's from Russia? Remember a few years ago when everybody was on their moral high horse about, I can't believe that during World War II we interned Japanese Americans into internment camps. See, again, we look at it through a perspective and a prism of today. But back 70 years ago, I am certain that President Roosevelt and the other powers that be thought that was a perfectly reasoned, reasonable response. But we didn't incarcerate or intern any German Americans. That was... So now, apparently, it's a reasoned response, and if you're a trucker and you lead a protest, we can freeze your bank accounts and strip you of your identity and your insurance, and you'll never be able to make a living again. And if it's the so-called guise of war, we can just take people's private property who may not have anything directly to do with Putin or his regime, but, you know, sucks to be you. You happen to be Russian and you live in Russia. We're taking your stuff. Really? Really? So as we're into day 8 or 9 now of the Russian invasion, people are also talking about now, this is getting serious. They've taken a city. You would think the media would be talking about that. They've taken a city. You know, for days we got spoon-fed these pablum articles about, the Russian soldiers are like all disoriented and they don't want to be there and blah 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 blah. Let me put a little perspective on that. Now that we've had some time to watch some of that unfold, and again, sometimes you lose things in the fog of war. I don't think Putin ever wanted it to get to this level. I really don't. I think he thought he would line up his army just outside the Ukraine border, and just their presence would be enough for them to negotiate with him about freeing those 2 states and letting them come out of Ukraine and be annexed as part of the Russian Federation. When Kalinsky, Yarpinsky, Varzinsky, whatever ski, basically told Putin to suck an egg and go fly a kite, okay, at that point, Putin rolled a few tanks across the border, and aha, we now have hostilities broken out. And again, I think he thought that with a almost Germanesque blitzkrieg type of, shock and awe, that immediately that Karpinski, Yarvinsky, Charkinsky, whatever ski, would run and hide, and that his government would then be in chaos and they would do anything, get down on their knees and beg big bad Russia, please don't hurt us, please, please, please. Because I do believe that initially the Russian army did not want to engage Ukraine or the citizens there because they're afraid. No. Civil war. And I know it's not really a civil war, but they were at one time all together under the Soviet flag, under the Soviet states. They share culture, they share language, they share heritage. So I am sure these young Russian soldiers, the last thing they wanted to do was open fire on people that they have a shared kindred with. And Yelinsky, Zarzinsky, Karfinsky, whatever ski, the president of Ukraine, he used that. He allowed his people to be like lambs led to the slaughter. He used that, hoping, on the one hand, that Russia wouldn't. But if they did, aha, now I really have what I need to put it to the United States, in particular, Joe Biden, after all the money we've given his family, to step in and help us and crush Russia. Well, they're not going to. Again, we get our oil from there, and I wonder if now Yarpinsky, Zalinsky, Garvinsky, whatever ski, now comes out and says, let me tell you some things about President Biden. Let me tell you. Let me tell you about money we give him. Let me share with you recorded conversations we have with him. That'll be interesting, because right now the whole world is caught up in, Ukraine mania. I mean, in the State of the Union the other night, all those congressmen, including rhino cuck Republicans, wearing Ukraine lapel pins and not wearing American flag lapel pins at an American State of the Union? Huh. I don't think Putin ever gambled and thought that all of Europe, because he supplies half of Europe with their fuel, so I think that they did go in there underprepared. Tanks were running out of gas. I think that's all true. The guys are kind of like starving, like we didn't bring any food with us. He expected this thing to be over in about 24 hours. That once the show of force was there, Yelinsky, Karpinski, Varzinski would just simply surrender, and that would be that. But instead, he's decided to use his people as human shields. Where have we heard that term before? And after a couple of days of what looked to be floundering by Putin, because again, I don't know if it was as much floundering as was like, does he not realize what I'm about to do to his people? Does he not realize the awe and power at my disposal with this military and what we can do to this entire country? Well, surely at some point he's going to pick the phone up and say, hey, let me and my family have our money and our protection, and we'll leave, and you can have this country. And that didn't happen. And so now, finally, Putin has said, that's it, and it's hammer down, baby. It's hammer down. And that's sad, because none of this had to happen. But it has now. And again, Joe Biden, he's not going to get involved. And again, many of us have said, don't. This is a Russian-Ukraine thing. But it's almost laughable, if not right sad, to number one, see Joe Biden try to act like he's FDR during World War II, and Camilla thinks she's a Hottie Harris. Ukraine is just like this little country over in Europe, and Russia's a bigger country, and the bigger country is picking on the little country. That is the assessment, that is the intellect and the intelligence that we are getting from the people that are supposed to be leading us. God help us all.